Okay, we'll just go with hearing then, because we are live now. All right. Hi, everyone. And those of you joining us around the world, I am Jody Reynosa, your host of Guided, helping you navigate your divine journey. And with me is world famous ufologist Tom Dongo, joining me from Sedona, Arizona. Tom, thank you so much for joining me. And I have tried to get you on my show for more than a year. And so I am absolutely honored for you to be here today.
Well, it's my honor to be here too, Jody. So I've been looking forward to it for a while. So it's good.
Thank you so much. Well, Guided, that's the name of my show here. And you have been guided by the stars for quite some time.
Yeah, I have.
You have several books out. Now, 8 books, is that right?
Yes, 8 books.
Okay, so we have The Alien Tide, The Mysteries of Sedona, The Quest, and several volumes of that. The Abduction of Frank Ramsey. Is that one of them? Or is that's just an article that you wrote?
Yeah, that's just a story.
Okay. And then one of the newest books is Merging Dimensions. And tell me ones that I've missed.
Oh gosh, I don't I don't have them right here in front of me. But Unseen Beings and The Quest are now out of print.
Oh.
So there'll be just six books.
Okay. Well, let's take people back to how we met. So I went to a conference in Sedona and I heard you speak, and you showed some absolutely phenomenal pictures that you were able to capture on video, on your camera, of some basically, for me, unexplainable, unidentified flying objects, and looked like to me some fleets of ships. And they were quite astounding, beautiful, in my mind. And that's how I met you. And it was quite an honor. And you told some really fascinating stories as well. And Sedona's a very special place to me. I feel like part of my soul's there because some really neat experiences have happened to me there. But tell me a little bit about your journey of getting into the paranormal, your spiritual journey. Did that kind of happen as a child with your spiritual gifts? Because you're also a medical intuitive.
Yes, well, I had strange things with UFO sightings happen to me when I grew up in Maine. And so that was really, I think, the start of it. But when I got... I read the Seth Speaks by Jane Roberts. That's what really triggered this whole thing. I had a sporting goods store in Reno, Nevada, and one day I was walking down the sidewalk. I used to take an hour lunch break every day. I was going down the sidewalk, and I've had other people tell me this story too. So,
Tom, let me stop you. I'm sorry. We're having people who are logged onto Facebook. I'm so sorry. They can hear me, but they can't hear you, and that's all part of this. I want people to be able to hear you. So let's make sure that we are able to hear you. Let's make sure that the audio is where we need it to be. So let's take a time out real quick, everyone, and just make sure that we can hear Tom, because Tom is the man of the hour. He has some fascinating stories. So let me just real quick look at our audio here so we can hear Tom. 1 second. You were mentioning that when you were younger, things kind of started with these spiritual phenomenon. So tell me a little bit about that. How old were you when it started?
Oh, I was in high school, and I was I grew up in Falmouth, Maine, but I was on my way into Portland, Maine. I saw a red UFO, bright red UFO, descend into a valley right by my house, and for some reason, later on I found out that back in those days, if you followed a UFO, you get abducted. I had no idea what an abduction was in those days, but it went down and it was sucking electricity out of the high power line in the valley. For some reason, that was a common occurrence back in those days, and so I was told later it's a good thing you didn't go down there. You might not have come back. So anyway, I saw the same thing about a week later. Then I didn't see anything for about 10 years, and then so actually a lot longer than that. Then I moved to Reno, Nevada. I was in the snow ski business at the time, and what got me into this whole thing was I was going down a sidewalk, and two giant hands. Crazy it sounds, I've heard this before from quite a few people. A giant pair of hands grabbed me by my shoulders and was steering me down the sidewalk. And I thought, well, this is pretty cool. So I just went with it, and the hands turned me and steered me into a sidewalk, a parking lot, and across the parking lot, through all these cars, and I came to a bookstore. So the hands kind of maneuvered me through the doors, and I was going through the bookstore all the way to the back, and it bent me over, and it was used books, and at the very bottom there was a book. My hand went down and pulled it out, and it was Seth Speaks by Jane Roberts. That's what got me into this whole thing, that book. I spent 6 months studying it. So everything I do now, I can give credit to Jane Roberts and Seth Speaks.
Wow. That is amazing. Now, did you feel like impressions on your shoulders, or did you just feel like an energy guiding you?
Yeah. Oh, no, it was like a giant hands. I mean, 3 feet high. Grabbed me by both sides and it held me. I couldn't move. So it was steering me down the sidewalk, and I just went, and when I picked the book up, the hands were gone. But I've heard this story many times from other people. So anyway, that's what got me into this whole thing, all of it, all the incredible stuff I've been involved in.
Now, for those people who don't understand or know about Seth Speaks, Jane Roberts, similar to Abraham Hicks, Jane Roberts was a woman who had a spiritual experience and had a spiritual entity and called Seth, basically, and that was somebody who died, basically, right? And then came to her, and she was able to channel Seth. Emma, is that correct?
Yeah, Seth was somebody Jane Roberts channeled for somebody that was an extreme intellectual, and he said that Seth was an enormous intellect. He tried to do all kinds of things to trip Seth up, but he couldn't. So from there, I took a lot of the hints that were in the Seth Speaks, and it's a channel book. Seth had been dead, I think he died in the 30s, if I remember right. So he'd been dead for quite a while. It was a channel book, and so that's what a few things that are in there in that book have kept me going all these years that I read. So so I can credit Jane Roberts. She and her husband are now both deceased, but that's what got me into this whole incredible scenario.
That's amazing, Tom. Now, some of the people who are on here right now, I want to give them kind of an example of what a Seth experience might be like. I mean, you just gave it a Seth experience, kind of like being led to a bookstore across, a parking lot, a book kind of, fell into your life, so to speak, just because of that experience. But I'll give an experience that just happened to me, last week. I was kind of, something woke me up in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden I started thinking about my great grandma Bertha, and she grew up near Mount Shasta. And, she passed a long time ago, and all of a sudden, I started thinking about my ancestors and, the genealogy that I still hadn't done. And certain impressions started coming to me about the fact that I needed to look up those connections. And when I started doing that, I started finding out all of these ties and connections that I never knew that I had. I never knew that I had pioneer ancestry and people that colonized America and all these things. And it was very interesting. And so when people think about others coming through the veil and people coming from beyond to lead us and guide us to certain things, it's a real thing. So I think it's beautiful for you to share things that happen to you to kind of catapult you into this direction of UFOs and spirituality and all sorts of things. Did you feel that you had anybody to share this with, or did you feel like, oh my gosh, people are going to think I'm a freak of nature?
Well, after that, I left Reno about 2 months later because of the drugs. The drug situation in Reno was horrific, especially cocaine. So I moved to California. I moved to Santa Cruz, which is a whole different environment entirely. But what I learned in the Seth books, I read 3 or 4 of the Seth books. And so getting to Santa Cruz, everybody was into that stuff. So I was in a family there. And so that's from that point on, I stayed in Santa Cruz 4 years, and then I moved to Sedona, and because the Seth books kind of set me up. So I got to Sedona, and the paranormal experiences were absolutely phenomenal. So I listened to everything I could and wrote it down. And then I wrote it took me 7 days to write it. I wrote a paper for a little periodical in Sedona, and it was only meant to be one time. But that story I wrote in 7 days ended up being my book, Mysteries of Sedona, which has sold about 70,000 copies now. And
wow.
The woman that had the periodical at the time took what I wrote and made it into a book on her own. So, and she's still my publisher, 34 years later. So, at any rate, that started. Mysteries of Sedona started the whole thing. I mean, it was just a cascade of events, and then and that's where it started. So I found out that I'm while I was at in Santa Cruz, I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute, and I found out I had abilities some of their best psychics didn't have. So I've been using my psychic abilities combined with remote viewing. I'm a master remote viewer, and I'm going to try. I'm going to give this away. On Facebook, I've told people that I'm going to start teaching remote viewing for free. I'm going to use my technique, which is different than the U.S. government's technique. I've had U.S. government remote viewers try my technique, and they say yours is way better than ours. So, long story, but so I'm going to with all of the incredible things, all the experiences I've had. If you read my books, you know what I'm talking about. You know, I'm always going, why me? Why in hell did these things happen to me? And if you read my books, you'll see why. So it continues. I mean, I can. So at any rate, I'm going to teach remote viewing for free.
That's incredible, Tom. Okay, that's such a treat. Everybody who's on here and everybody who may be listening to this afterwards around the world, let me just tell you how much remote viewers to teach this charge. It's an incredible amount of money because it's a skill that you hone, and it takes, sometimes years to really master. And so for Tom to be able to offer this and gift this to you for free is quite something. So that's amazing. Tom, let me just tell you something though. For us to have tech difficulties for like basically the first 10 to 12 minutes, I just want to say that I think because this information is so valuable to get out and your experiences are so valuable, I think something was kind of trying to stop us, okay? Because I think you have such a beautiful heart and soul, and your experiences are amazing. Your books are amazing, and your experiences in Sedona and your whole life, the stuff that you get out is inspiring. And so I am just so, again, grateful to have you on here. And I want to take it back, though, again, real quick to Santa Cruz and to the Berkeley Psychic Institute. Now, when you realized that you had these gifts and that, wow, remote viewing and these psychic abilities, were people from beyond the veil, did they constantly come to visit you, or were you seeing people when you just scanned people that would come walk to you around town or around this, you know what I'm saying? Like just in society, how were you able to turn that on and off?
Well, I'm a natural remote viewer. A psychologist friend of mine tested me for 6 months on these abilities. But getting back to remote viewing for a second, remote viewing is not a psychic ability. Remote viewing can be taught to anybody. So, I'm talking from my own experience. If people could have the vision I have, this world would be a totally different place very quickly if everybody could remote view. So I'm going to go into this on Facebook as much as I can with the experience that I've got on this. So if people had the third vision like I do, I don't know, some people would say fourth vision, fifth vision, sixth vision, whatever. But if people could do what I do, and that's why I'm going to give it away. I could charge thousands too. But that's why I'm going to give it away, because I want people. Right now, remote viewing is a critical asset that we need to have. I'm talking from experience because of what I know, what I can see. I talk to extraterrestrials. I can talk to dead people. And I know when they're around. I can talk to ghosts. I've done it. I've proved it in my books. They were witnesses. So I have some somebody said, well, Tom, you didn't learn that stuff on this planet. You were trained in that on another planet somewhere. And I said, well, maybe. But, I have these abilities that I can combine. And, it gets, for instance, extraterrestrials are not our enemies. If we recognize them, they are not our enemies. They will. If not be our friends, they will at least leave us alone. So I'm trying to, with remote viewing, there's a couple of long stories I could get into here, but we don't. And one of them is with Joe McMoneagle, and Joe was the top remote viewer for the United States. I used to think I was crazy. I thought I've got to be insane. And then things would happen to validate that what I was talking about, I wasn't crazy. Like an experience Joe McMoneagle had talking to extraterrestrials. And I said, well, damn, I've been doing that for a long time. So then I knew I wasn't crazy. So at any rate, people that really want to do it seriously, it takes a little bit of work, especially if, if they haven't done remote viewing before. It's not hard to teach. I've had audiences of 100 people that most of them, the ones that wanted to do it, I gave them a little lesson and they got it. So it's not hard to learn. It really isn't.
That's amazing, Tom. And I think it's great to differentiate between remote viewing can be a learned skill versus being a psychic ability. And like you said, it's such a valuable skill to have right now, because right now so many of us are sheltered in place, and we never know if communication could be shut down at any time. Who knows? The internet could be shut down at any day. And we need to have a skill that could keep us connected, and remote viewing could be that way, that skill to have. And it's through the consciousness as well. I believe that the skill can kind of be augmented as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Tibetans have had remote viewers for 1,000 years because they couldn't get, there was no telephones between the villages, so each village had a remote viewer. So they would go around to the villages and find out what the news was, and then go and tell the people in their village. And that's the absolute truth. That's been well researched. So, I have an amazing psychic ability. So I combine that with the things that with remote viewing. So, so just remote viewing itself is a critical thing right now, because instead of being confused, we can be aware, and sometimes my vision, my remote viewing, what remote viewing is projecting your subconscious to a distance, and it doesn't make any difference how far. It can be thousands of miles. Time doesn't matter either. You can go ahead in time, you can go back in time. But sometimes when I try to remote view, I'm not. It's not so good. But sometimes I'm spontaneous. I'll have spontaneous experiences, and one of them, the worst I've ever had in my life, was about 6 months ago. A girl, a friend of mine, her sister's daughter was murdered, a 9-year-old, and so instantly I was there, and it was remote viewing, and this happens sometimes. This is spontaneous, and it can be. I've had to toughen myself because it can be rough. So I watched the whole murder, so it was brutal. He enjoyed it. I knew what he looked like. I knew what he dressed like, and this was just remote viewing, not using any psychic abilities. So, and I watched the girl, what she said, and I felt what she felt when she died. So, I felt, I cried for 2 days. I did. I said, I said, I'm going to, these aren't the exact words I said, I'm going to destroy that son of a bitch. And so I found him. It didn't take me long to find him. He was a Parks and Recreational worker, and I knew what he looked like, and I found where he lived, a real dingy place. And I did something to his arms and legs. He was getting ready to kill another little girl. So somebody, a voice said, "You got him." Well, you got him. So I've worked on about 6 or 7 murders now, and I've solved each one of them. I will never do another one. I want to make that clear. I will never, ever work on another murder. So a great channel told me once that I was a powerful warlock in a past life. So I'm wondering, did I reinstitute those warlock powers to use on this guy? Because I really did a job on him. And so, it's that sort of thing that happens to me, and it's not easy. I mean, I spent years and years trying to get used to this. And being close to extraterrestrials and all that, it's not an easy business. People tell me, "Oh, Tom, you're so lucky to have such a wonderful gift." Well, no, not really. I don't. Sometimes I don't know whether it's a curse or a gift, but what I can teach, I'm going to.
Wow, that's amazing. So, Tom, when you say you did something to his arms and legs energetically, or what exactly do you mean? Can you be specific?
Well, I'm not exactly sure, but I somehow I knew how to do it. He won't be able to bother any more little girls.
Oh, thank goodness.
So people, by the way, I thought, I was talking to a friend of mine, a great friend, Annie DeRizo. Annie is fabulous. Annie DeRizo. Annie, you're on. You're listening to this. Hi, Annie. She's saying, "Oh God, Tom used my name." Well, I was talking to Annie, and she told me there are other people that do this. They'll find a murderer and destroy them. And I was like, oh, yeah. And she had the names of some of these people, so I felt better about that. You know, I said, well, I'm not crazy. It's another thing, because so many times things have happened that are so extremely unusual, especially on the Bradshaw Ranch, with all this the stuff, the incredible paranormal stuff that went on the Bradshaw Ranch. You know.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in part 2, because your book Merging Dimensions goes all into what happened in Bradshaw Ranch. But you know, quick question, Tom. I want to make sure that we're still picking you up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly.
Okay. So, quick question about the different ways as far as modalities to either solve cases or, you know, use it for the benefit of humanity. You know, we have remote viewing, and not only can you help people with that, but people in government used it. You know, we've had spies in all sorts of wars get, you know, intel from Russia to China to all sorts of countries, you know, where are the missiles hidden, all sorts of things. But, you know, we also have the quantum healing hypnosis therapy technique. And I know that different cases have been solved that way too. Is there a better way, so to speak, or a faster way in your mind?
Well, let me put it this way. Everybody has psychic abilities. You just have to know what it is. You know, I don't know how many times I've heard people say to me, oh, I don't have any psychic abilities. And they do. But it's different. You know, I've been in a room with some of the world's best psychics, a room full of literally the world's best psychics, and what an experience. Because you begin to, if you already have a little bit of psychic ability, you absorb what they know, what their abilities are. Because I know it's happened to me. I had a friend that she was a government remote viewer working at Los Alamos for the government, a psychic. She was a psychic. And we used to play travel games. We'd go off into the universe somewhere, galaxies, whatever. But, so I learned what she knew, and she learned what I knew. It's a spontaneous absorption thing between great psychics. So at any rate, everybody has psychic abilities. Everybody. But the problem is they doubt it. Oh, that was just my imagination. Well, damn it, no, it's not your imagination. That's been one of the biggest obstacles I've come up against with remote viewing. Oh, that's just my imagination. And I say, no, it's not. If you believe it's not real, it's your imagination, it's fantasy or whatever, it's not. I mean, sometimes it is, but you have to learn to sort it out. So, everybody has abilities. But you know what usually happens is when they were little kids, 5 years old, they say, "Oh, that didn't really happen. It was your imagination," you know. And so right there, they're stifled. I've heard that so many times. Somebody, you know, would tell me what they did when they were a little kid, and their mother ridiculed them, and I said, "Oh God," you know. And that happens all the time. The kids have these phenomenal abilities, and somebody ridicules them. So that's the end of it.
Oh, I agree. The gaslighting starts at a young age, and the gifts start at a young age, or we come in with them. And it's so sad that happens. And, you know, as far as different modalities, I believe, like you said, and like you have these abilities to do, you combine them. You know, you use your remote, viewing, you use your psychic abilities. For me, you know, I've delved into shamanism. So I journey, I use my spiritual abilities. I have psychic abilities as well. And so, you know, you went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute. I went to a spinoff called The Intuitive Way in the East Bay of San Francisco. And so, you know, we did readings for people. Now, I grew up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they use a general umbrella of the spirit. And so what was interesting for me is I didn't have a chance until I went to Intuitive Way and kind of delved into a spiritual journey myself. is I didn't know, like, what exactly are my specific gifts. And so I learned that intuitive way what clairaudience means, what clairvoyance means, what clairsentience means, what just a knowing means. And so I think what people on their own need to do is, what exactly are their specific spiritual gifts? How do they receive from spirit? You know, do they see in dreams, you know, vivid things? Like, I'm a very vivid dreamer. And so really take note of how you receive messages. You know, are you seeing pictures, or is it just a knowing, you know, and really kind of develop and understand what that means to you, because it's more than just a broad, you know, like, I felt the spirit. Really delve into that. What does that mean to you? And so that was a journey in and of itself for me. And so it's a beautiful thing, all of the spiritual stuff. You know, I want to look at the chat real quick, and we have Gary Norris. Gary, this is really interesting. It says, back in approximately 1995, I saw a UFO about the size of a VW bug flying about 200 feet above the ground outside of Logan, Utah. It made no noise at all, just flew by me about 50 miles per hour, not fast at all, just weird. Interesting. Gary, thanks for sharing that. What's your take on that, Tom?
Oh boy, we got 2 weeks. You know, I've seen about 400 UFOs. I've been within 100 feet of an alien spacecraft, and these are not, I mean, you know, the UFO, the activity like he had is not, you know, people are never ready for it. It takes them by surprise. That's the trick. But you know, I have been. In my books, I talk a lot about that, which, by the way, are available on Amazon. Only get my books through Amazon. Amazon's got a ton of them. They need to sell them. Amazon. So anyway, you know, you know, I've extraterrestrials can read your mind. I mean, I learned that about 10 years ago, 10 to 15, about 20 years ago. If you're in the vicinity of an extraterrestrial, they can read your mind. The Travel Channel actually did a video on one of my experiences with a UFO, an alien spacecraft. Long story, but no, they can read. If you're thinking about them, they will read your mind. Anyway, yeah, that's I've seen so many. You know, this one story comes to mind. It was in near Taos, New Mexico. These two guys were fishing, and they'd gone into the trees, and it was a beautiful spot. I've been there. It's near Taos. It's a beautiful river. But they went into the trees to have their lunch or whatever, and here comes this you know, back then, you know, we have our own UFOs. The U.S. government has had flying saucers for 50 years, so some of the ones you see are ours. But at any rate, this one, these guys, it was an alien spacecraft, a disc, coming down, following the river, and a car came along, and the disc went way almost down to the river, and they watched this disc real low, so the car couldn't see them. As soon as the car went by, the disc went back up to 100 feet or whatever it was and continued down the river. And I don't think the disc knew those guys were there. And I've heard thousands of stories like that. You know, and I've had my own experiences. I've been very close to, you know, alien, and they are alien. They're not ours. Just a real quick story. A friend of mine he is an Air Force colonel. And I had an experience, and I said, Ron, you know, I think this thing was alien. It was not one of ours. And I said, you know, if it was one of ours, it was on the ground. And I said, Ron, it would have been surrounded by attack helicopters and guys on the ground with machine guns, but it wasn't. It was damaged. Long story. It had damage at the 5 o'clock side, and he said, "Oh yeah, absolutely, that was alien." that was an alien spacecraft. So I've seen a bunch of them. It's been close. Long stories.
That is incredible. Now, Tom, can you take us kind of through a timeline? I mean, things really started getting heated up as far as, you know, people paying attention when things happened around 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico. But I know things, you know, happened way before that. But, you know, people denied it in government, saying it was a weather balloon. So, you know, take us through a timeline if you can.
Okay, I have a friend. Well, I have never met him, but I proofread his book. His publisher said, you know, this is about 10 years ago. I said, can you, you know, you want me to proofread his book? So I did, you know, and I said, yeah, it's very good. It sounds. He had a cosmic top secret clearance in the Air Force. And cosmic top secret is 40 levels higher than the President of the United States. So he said, you know, we all know in intelligence that the U.S. government has been dealing face-to-face with extraterrestrials since probably about 1936 on, face-to-face. And during the 40s, when the Roswell crash did happen, it was not debris from a balloon. It did happen. And the one survivor, Edie, lived for, I think, over a year. And we just couldn't eat our food. We didn't have food for her. But Edie lived for about a year. And so, I mean, you know, I can go on and on and on and on with this stuff. How people have talked to extraterrestrials, not just the human ones either. The non-human ones that you know, they have a head, two arms, two legs, you know, and they're not, you know, people don't understand them, they don't accept them. And well, here's just one quick story. In New Mexico, when they had the Roswell crash, probably happened because of the new radar they had. They had powerful radar that messed up the Roswell ship's navigation stuff, and it crashed. That's probably what happened, but nobody knows for sure. So anyway, there was this guy. I talked to. He was a lieutenant at the time, about the time of Roswell, and he was off somewhere in a Jeep by himself, and he did. He saw a UFO land, a disc. So he ran into a cave to hide, left his Jeep outside, and pretty soon this creature comes walking in. It was a humanoid, and he went for his .45, his gun, and the creature said, "I wouldn't do that if I was you." And I wouldn't either. You know, a .45 is useless against an extraterrestrial with the abilities they have. I know the abilities they have. I've been involved in them, so I know what they can do. So anyway, he says, "I'm here to talk to you. We want you to turn your radar off at 5:25 or what it was, so we can get our ship out of here. Turn your new high power radar off for just 10 minutes, so we can get out of here." And the guy said, "Well, because somehow the being knew that he was in charge." And he says, "Okay." So at the appointed time, they turned the radar off, and this thing went flying off into space. So I got a million stories like that.
That's incredible. Oh my goodness. So
the only reason I could go on and on about this. The only reason extraterrestrials are a threat to us because we make them a threat. I mean, there are some bad ones like the reptilians and all that, but they don't have to be bad. I know there are people who would argue until they're blue in the face with me about that, but I know what they are. I've remote viewed them. And if we would recognize them as they are, you know, as beings, I mean, we're all beings in the same universe. Most of them would leave us alone. So some of them are brutally bad, evil. So those would be trouble. But you know, with remote viewing, you can recognize them. You can scan them. You know, so I mean, you know, I could talk about this for 2 hours, but so I do that. I do that all the time. I know them. You know, I hear all these bullshit stories about experience people have had with extraterrestrials, and I think, you know, if they'd had remote viewing, a really, really good remote viewing ability, they would have had a completely different impression of that. You know, it would not have happened the way it did. So that's another reason I want to just quickly now. Remote viewing, any natural ability, psychic remote viewing, or if it's used for good, it works. It'll just get better. But I taught remote viewing years ago for a while, and there were two things: husbands wanted to spy on their wives, wives wanted to spy on their husbands. They were trying to get the lottery numbers. So I said, damn it, and if people keep on doing that, they're going to lose the ability. I've seen it happen. So anyway.
Wow. Interesting. So, Aaron in the chat says, I met a lady whose grandfather was a first responder for the Roswell crash. She told me he buried a piece of the metal on his ranch. I haven't coerced her into letting me go find it yet.
Well, yeah, it's probably not there now. I've heard that story. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that, but it's probably not there. That's all I can say about that. It's probably not there.
Government probably scoured the area to pick up every little piece of anything left over, I'm sure.
Well, either that or extraterrestrials took it, because the people that took it hid it. The extraterrestrials can read their mind. They pass. So if they wanted it, they take it back. I've had experiences. I've had something disappear out of my house here, a photograph of a crash in New Mexico, where the dead aliens, and it was not a photograph, a drawing of the incident. Extraterrestrials have said, you will never photograph the inside of one of our ships, and it's never been done. But this was an intricate drawing of the dead extraterrestrials. They were little; they were about 2.5 feet tall, and that was stolen out of in a place nobody could get it ever. Here, where I've been here 3 years. It was about 2 years ago, and nobody would have been able to find it for one thing. But it was taken out of a pile of photographs. And who got it? Extraterrestrials. If it was government, they would have taken them all. So there's an example.
Very interesting. Now, going back to the fact that you didn't think that, certain beings were all bad, there's probably factions of, like the Dracos and stuff that are very evil, like you said, but you said, not all of them are. So I guess it's just a matter of letting them know your intentions and then I guess making peace with them, right? I think it's maybe a fear tactic of government to throw out disinformation about the fact that there's going to be some alien invasion.
Well, okay. I've remote viewed the Dracos and some of these others, and the Dracos are probably an invention of humans. Somebody. Okay, I'm gonna stick my neck out on a limb here. Ashtar does not exist. I know that's going to irritate. So, somebody's talking to me. Okay, well, I'm going to stick with that. I guess I'm wrong a little bit about that because somebody's talking to me.
I bet I know who is too. They're in Sedona.
So I have these experiences. If I say something wrong, I'll hear this. No, stop. Then I'll say in my mind, okay, what? And then they'll give me the right story. But I just said Ashtar does not exist. But he said, no, you don't have it quite right. So I'm going to leave that. But it's the darn. Billy Meyer, in Switzerland, they used to heat up his forehead, so he would have to listen to what the Pleiadians were doing for him and said to him. But the Dracos and what's the heck? The 3 or 4 anyway. I've remote viewed them, and they probably don't exist. I mean, I can't find them. It's probably a combination of some real bad aliens like reptilians or whatever, but it's hard for me to figure out sometimes too. But what's that other group? It's a fallacy. It's I can't think of it right now. But remote viewing, you can look for them.
Do you think they're just blocking you, and that's why you can't find them, or do you think they really?
Yes, good point. Because all of them, and I'm saying all of them, can block me.
Yeah.
I mean, literally block me. They'll put up a block I can't get through.
Yeah, I've had that experience too,
Yeah.
where you can see so far, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're blocked, and it's like, oh, okay, I can't go any further.
When I first started remote viewing, General Stubblebine I went to a conference in Denver, and he was saying our best remote viewers can't get through the blocks that these beings put up. And I almost wanted to jump up and down and wave my hand, because I learned how to do that, to get through and around those blocks that a being would put up. And I never did tell them. I was just, everybody there had credentials. And I graduated from high school. Everybody was a PhD in some damn thing or another. So who the hell was I? Those people, with egos like that. What's your education? High school. Bye. I'm not joking. So anyway, I learned early how to get through these blocks. Some of them I can't get through.
That's very, very interesting. Very interesting. I've had that same experience. So we have one question from the chat, and they said, what are the basics, fundamentals, as far as remote viewing? I mean, I know with the government, they have a target, and it's a regimented protocol. So what are your thoughts?
If there's a target, I don't use coordinates. The brain will find that. It's nice that Jesus Christ put coordinate numbers 250x7d5. And so that's kind of handy. But I have found that the brain will go back. I mean, for me at least, I don't need the coordinates. I can find it on my own. Just by saying I want to go to this or that spot. And, I had a friend of mine, he was a psychologist, tested me on this stuff for 6 months. He lived in Durango, Colorado, and I was in Sedona. And he was really, really, I guess he never ran into anybody that was a good remote viewer. But so we played with this for 6 months. And so then it validated, the stuff I can do. And I found that if you put something in the sun, I could see it like I was right there. But if it was in the shadows, I had a hard time seeing it. I still don't understand that. But I could go in. He had tropical birds in a he was heated and humidified at the side of his house. They were really nice. So I used to go in there from here in Sedona and psychically hang out with those birds. And they could all see me. An animal can see you. If you're remote viewing, a dog can see you. I mean, I've had him do it. I've had him come right over to me and look at me. I remember one time I went to see my friend Tom in Durango, and his dog. He was out in the back somewhere, and you feel like a ghost because everything's opaque, and so his dog, Binky, was following me around. So I got right down and looked at him in the eyes, and I said, well, you little bastard, you can actually see me, can't you? He's going, he's looking right into my eyes, and I said, you can actually see me. And he followed me all around, So animals can see you, so they have, that's why cats, they're looking at the roof all around. They're seeing something. There's something there, a ghost or whatever. So I'll tell you a quick story. How much time we got?
Oh, we're good, Tom. We're good. Keep going.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a real weird story. Because Tom used to test me. So I think it was about 6 o'clock at night, I think. So we were going to meet at 7. I was going to go to his house. So I'd always go through in his house. He had a beautiful house on a mesa above Durango. And I would materialize outside of his house and go through his office window on the second story, through his office and down the stairs. He had a flight of stairs going down to the kitchen and the living room. So I used to do that all the time. So when he would test me, so I got halfway down the stairs and I something terrified me, scared me to death. And I couldn't figure out what is this? What the hell is this? And so I stopped and I sensed, I scanned all around. I couldn't figure out what it was. So I went down. I sat on the first step. And when you remote view, you can smell things. You can smell flowers. You can smell cooking. You might be 1,000 miles away, but you can smell what somebody's cooking. You can be in California and go visit your relatives in Hawaii. You can smell what they're cooking. I mean, you can't do it all the time. It's only happened to me once or twice. But so I met Tom. Had a pair of blue jeans on, a red lumberjack shirt on, the black and red, and cowboy boots. And he liked to wear cowboy duds, and so he was cooking something. He smelled like chili. So I watched him. I could smell it. It smelled good. And so I watched him. So 7 o'clock came, and I called him, and I said, I've been watching you for an hour, Tom. What's that stuff you're cooking? He said, it wasn't chili, but it was close. It was some kind of sauce or something, So anyway, I said, Tom, something scared the hell out of you coming down your stairs. Are you alone here? Because we always did these things alone. So we agreed that, if there was anybody else, we'd talk about it. So I said, Tom, is there somebody else there that you didn't tell me about? And he says, well, yeah, I invited my next door neighbor over to witness this. So I said, Tom, where the hell is he? Because I looked around, I couldn't see anybody. And he said, well, follow me into the living room. And he's sitting on the couch. I looked at the couch, I could not see him. Scared the hell out of me. So I'm thinking, was this somebody without a soul?
Interesting.
I could not see him. I could see the couch, but I couldn't see him. So I've never gotten over that.
So what do you think that was? Is that somebody who had an entity in him? Is that somebody what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I really don't know. I think, I don't know. I really, really don't know. It could have been a ghost, could have been an extraterrestrial, it could have been, there are things that are around us I don't understand. But we are on, extraterrestrials have said that we are the only species that's on a linear timeline. We're trapped in time. And they've said you humans are the only ones that are trapped in time. So there are these creatures, and some of them I don't understand. I've tried, actually I don't want to understand them because they're probably pretty harmless. But the guy that I couldn't see, I don't know. He could have been a ghost. I mean, ghosts can manifest. But, well, no, that wouldn't have been possible because he was a regular guy, had a regular job in Durango. So
here's a couple thoughts, hypothesis, because to me, a ghost, you still see their soul. A couple hypotheses are an AI type thing, or there are people I've talked to who are in the super soldier program who they say that they have taken a consciousness out of somebody and put it into an AI type entity, and it's almost like it's a disembodied soul, but it's like a body, but it's almost like they're soulless because it's like an AI.
Well, yeah, boy, yeah, there are things I don't understand. I see them, but even as much as, there are very few people in the world. I had a guy tell me, and I'm not going to say who he is, but he was in charge of researching kind of the stuff I do, and we talked for 4 hours. He got up and he said, there is not another person on this planet like you. So I'm thinking, well, geez, I wonder, you know, and I think you probably read in University of California, Berkeley wanted to study me 20 years ago. They wanted me to come in and study me for 2 weeks. I didn't go. So, but anyway, so I don't know. You know, I don't know. All this stuff is coming together for me, and I, you know, I'm pretty old. So I'm 75 years old. So, you know, I want what I can spread around. I'm going to do it. You know, if I can. You know, if people want to hear what I have to say, I'm not going to force it on them for sure.
You're still a spring chicken, Tom. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
You know, interesting also, you know, Berkeley does a lot of research on this stuff. Also the SRI, so Stanford Research Institute. And they are heavy into UFOs, ETs, covert operation type research, and consciousness. You know, so I think it's fascinating that people are finding some really interesting things, not just in our world, but beyond the veil, beyond our universe, galaxies. It's fascinating to me. Tom, when you have encountered ETs, what was like the most interesting experience as far as a relationship that you've had with them?
Well, there's been so many. I'll tell you one that I'm able to go on an alien spacecraft out in space, and there are lots of them out there, and visit with the extraterrestrials. And if they tell you we don't want you here, they mean it. If they tell you you don't belong, you leave. They're not joking. But some of them, they don't care. They say, oh, another damn human. So I hang around. I go around, look at this stuff. And and these were very non-humans, extraterrestrials. And they were probably millions of years ahead of us. I mean, I'm an ant compared to them, because they create with their minds, and they don't communicate like we do. They communicate with telepathy and pictures. So this one guy was standing right. I don't know if it's male or female. I don't know. But he was standing right in front of me. And I said, "Can I probe your mind?" Because at one time I was very good at that. I'm not as good at it anymore. But I said, "Can I probe your mind?" He knew what I was talking about. So he stood there and said, "Yeah, go ahead." You know. So I'm about 3 feet away from this stuff. Totally non-human. And so I did, but I couldn't penetrate his mind. I could only get the outer layers. A brain to a psychic is like an onion. It's layers.
Yeah.
You keep going. So I learned enough.
What kind of ET was this, by the way, Tom?
Well, he had big round eyes, you know, gray skin. It wasn't gray, but it was a humanoid. You know, one head, 2 arms, 2 legs. So I don't know. There are many races of extraterrestrials. I'd say conservatively 150.
Wow.
You know, only about 12 are human. No, I'll say 15 are human. Because even the human extraterrestrials have been playing games with me for 20 years. I just talked about it on Facebook a few times. But they're so far ahead of us. Some of them, they're called by people that are experienced this stuff, the tricksters. They play tricks on people, and they've done it to me. And I told them, don't do it again. Don't do this anymore. But they love to play tricks on us. Or just do things that are they going to figure out who I am? And if you ask them, if you figure out who they are, if you say, are you an alien? Are you from another planet? No, I live in Detroit. Just came here a couple of weeks ago. They won't tell you unless they volunteer it. So, you know, the woman on my Facebook thing said, you know, I went into here in Sedona to the film festival, and there was somebody getting a foot massage that was matched the Swedes, blonde hair, blue eyes, and all that. And I said, I knew he was an extraterrestrial, and I said, yeah, he probably was. They do that stuff all the time, and if they get caught, it's a long story, but two of them, a male and a female, they're always beautiful people. They're physically perfect. You'll never see a fat extraterrestrial. Yeah, no, I'm not joking. I have never seen an overweight extraterrestrial, or anything. So at any rate, that's not. But they everybody in the room, but half the people in the room figured out this young couple were extraterrestrials. They were so out of place. So the guy that owned the house had just put a new lawn in. And it was all this nice smooth loam, but no grass. And so he watched them, and he said, I want to talk to them when they leave. So he waited till, he lost track of them for a second, and they got out the door. So he ran for the door, opened the door, and ran out, and the steps went about 5 steps and disappeared. So they dematerialized.
Wow.
Yes, this is very common with extraterrestrials.
Yeah, I want to get to that because there's a couple things with that. Now, when we talk about dematerializing, like you mentioned before, they exist on a non-linear, outside of space and time in an existence. So when we see them come in and out like that, it's almost as if we are seeing them bilocate, trilocate, and it's like a field of resonance that we're interacting with, so to speak, a dimensional bleeding, so to speak. And so I think that's why sometimes, we're able to see them and then all of a sudden we don't see them, or we see the ships and then we don't see the ships and then they come in and out. And then I wanted to go back to the fact that, like, when you were talking about remote viewing and how, animals can see us when we're remote viewing, it's almost like when we project our astral bodies out or our energy or light bodies out and we can go anywhere. Because I don't know how many people on this chat or in the chat or on this live stream or in my audience are familiar with this. I know people know me as the broadcaster Jody in mainstream, but I have been in this world pretty much my whole life, and so this is kind of coming out of the closet, so to speak. I don't think people realized this side of me unless you are in my very small circle of influence, and then you may have known this stuff about me, or if you've seen some of my Facebook posts, and then you may have realized, oh, Jody kind of has this side about her. Wow. But when you are looking through your third eye and you are seeing these types of things, or you're projecting your astral body or your energy body or your light body out, that might be a way of explaining remote viewing. Would you agree, Tom?
Okay, I'm going to give you a clue about remote viewing, what it is. It's if anybody is listening that wants to, I'm going to try to encourage everybody. My book, Unseen Beings, Unseen Worlds, is out of print forever, but it's on Kindle and ebooks, and for $3 you can buy a copy of it. And chapter 8 describes my version of remote viewing. I'm going to try to get everybody on Facebook. I only make about 27 cents, so it's not it's nothing. But that's my technique. It's chapter 8, remote viewing on Unseen Beings, Unseen Worlds.
Wonderful.
I'm going to try to get everybody on Facebook to buy that and read it. It's in simplicity. That's it. That's my method. And now I've had government remote viewers use this. One guy had he taught his 10-year-old son how to do this, and he had 100% hit rate.
Wow.
Yeah, we're using my technique, so I know it works.
Where's the furthest place that you've gone as far as remote viewing?
Oh, good question. Uh, well, uh, I've gone. Well, I've gone into other dimensions, but there's times when I've gone so far, I get afraid that I won't be able to get back. So, so as far as distance, I don't know. I really don't know. But I've had experiences out there that I can't explain. I ran into things that I don't know what they are. Geometric patterns in things, living things. I don't know what they have. We don't have the brains. We don't have the intellect to be able to understand these things. We just don't. Not at this stage.
Yeah, very interesting. You and I have had some interesting intersections in our lives as far as like me kind of following your path as far as you going to California and knowing the Sierra Nevadas and knowing the East Bay of San Francisco and all of that area. I grew up in Northern California and then went to San Francisco, but I also spent time in the eastern part of the United States, and that's where you grew up. So it's very interesting how our navigation patterns in life kind of are very similar.
The universe works in mysterious ways.
It really does. And now here we're intersecting. I love it. With my paranormal kind of supernatural things, because a lot of people don't know this about me, so this is kind of new for them to hear about these things. I grew up in Northern California in the Sierra Nevadas, and a lot of supernatural things happened where I grew up. And my first contact experiences was when I had a near-death experience when I was 5. And I suddenly saw myself on a ship, and I was like on a stainless steel bed, and beings were around me, and I was like, I couldn't move, and they were basically doing some type of healing work. I had a very high fever, and I was sick, and I kept going in and out of my body, and it was very interesting. And I just remember calling for my mom and dad saying, why do you guys keep yelling at me? And my dad kept coming in the room saying, we're not yelling at you. And so later, an intuitive person said, that may have been kind of the chaos going on in the ship of people trying to keep you incarnated here in this dimension, in this life, because you were ready to, possibly pass. But it was a very interesting experience. And then, I've had many contact experiences where I've seen ships and they've powered up, like I said, in violet color, or they've just powered up in very bright light, and then all of a sudden disappeared. And then I don't know if you remember this, Tom, but in Colfax, California, which was, 15 miles northeast of Sacramento on the way to Lake Tahoe, in the 90s, there was this Virgin Mary image that appeared in a Catholic church, and like the media from across the country came out to cover that. And, people lined up for miles to see this image. And so it was very interesting for our little town of only 1,000 people. So there was constantly things swirling around me, things of this nature. And then my sisters and I would always see various things that we couldn't explain, and, various spirits and things of that nature. So, and then like being a vivid dreamer. So I think it's always a beautiful thing to come across people like you who can understand. I feel like you're part of my tribe, and you, yeah, exactly. Family, and you can understand. So, I have somebody in the chat saying, I'm from Fort Davis, Texas, and, she's joining us. And also, I have family who they've worked at Sandia Labs, and they know about some of these secret projects and these underground bases that happen. And so they're familiar with the UFOs out in New Mexico and all around. What do you say to skeptics?
Well, I don't bother with skeptics. Not for 3 seconds. I gave up long ago trying to convince a skeptic. You can't, because they have to have some kind of a dramatic incident that changes their belief. Otherwise, you can never convince a skeptic. They have to. I've had people ridicule me, and they come back too easily, running over to me. You know, oh my God, Tom, you won't know. You can't believe what happened to me last night. Yeah, I can. Yeah, right. So no, I don't bother with skeptics anymore at all. I used to get attacked constantly, every direction you can imagine. I never get attacked anymore. So it must mean I'm right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
the people that used to attack me the most are now my supporters.
I love it. I love it. You know, I just can never be patronizing or condescending to anybody's spiritual experiences. I think to be judgmental is harmful.
It is.
It's just awful.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite people in government is Canada's former defense minister, Paul Hellyer.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, he came out about 5 years ago and he had a tour called the Disclosure Canada Tour, you know, and he spoke very loud and clear about having the world's governments, you know, stop covering up UFOs. And I thought it was brilliant.
Well, you know, I forgot his name now. But anyway, he was a vice president of Lockheed. A friend of mine was a vice president of Lockheed. I can't quite remember his name now. But at any rate, he said that, you know, and this is true. I mean, whatever you know or you think you know, we're 2,000 years ahead of it right now, and that is the absolute truth. Because, you know, I know people, big time people in the government. Most of them are retired. Some of them are so old they don't give a damn anymore. What can they do to me now? But I know what's been going on in the government. You know, and I know what the government knows about extraterrestrials and UFOs. Basically, I'm sure there's a lot of things I don't. But so we're 2,000 years behind right now, and that is the truth. If you get a glimpse, you know, some of this technology I've heard. Well, okay, for instance, artificial intelligence. The scientists right now are terrified that these robots are evolving a real consciousness. That science is terrified about this. That the artificial intelligence is developing their own consciousness. And what are they going to do when they become? They're superior to us. These things that we've invented. What are they going to do? And scientists are terrified about this.
Very, very interesting. But yeah, you know, I sat by a gentleman at an event in San Francisco a couple months ago, and he was with government, and he gave me his card, and he said, if you want to know about the AI super soldiers we're coming out with, let me know. And I couldn't believe that he was telling me this, because I thought, wow, are they ready for disclosure? I mean, interesting.
Yeah, well, I went to Contact in the Desert a couple of years ago, and Linda Howe was talking about this. There was a robot in Japan, a military robot, that got out of control and killed 29 people before they could stop it. So, and the robots that they tried to take apart were reassembling themselves on their own.
Yep, I've heard about these things. It's unreal. And the thing is, you know, the common, you know, John Deere and Jane Doe, they don't want to hear these things. They don't want to know that these things exist. They just want to go on with their merry lives. And when I bring these subjects up, it scares them.
Well, yeah, I know. I get, I don't want to hear it. That's negative. That drives me nuts.
I know.
It really does. Oh, I don't want to hear that. It's negative. You know, they only want to hear the positive stuff. for me, I want to know the positive stuff and the negative stuff, and I'll make my own decision. But, Sedona's one of those places where there's a lot of people in fantasy land. Everything's perfect, everything's loving, everything's hearts, everything's angels. That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
It really does. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We can still be loving. We can still be kind, but we also can be in the know with actually what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm glad that the U.S. Navy is finally coming out and releasing video about, the 2015 UFOs that were off the coast of California.
Yeah, Jody, those are our UFOs. Those are our ships.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, those Tic Tacs were ours.
Okay. Yeah, somebody said that it was our way of saying, hey, China, this is what we have.
Yeah. So, no, those are ours.
Okay. So how do we differentiate? So tell me this, Tom. How do we differentiate between man-made fleets and alien ET fleets?
Well, usually the aliens they're using a technology that we just don't have. I mean, the one I saw, that flew right over my van. We had 6 people. I just came back from a tour. This thing was not from this planet. It was so. I've seen these now about 6 times, but not that close. And it didn't make a sound. It floated like a blown feather, and it flew right over us. And that thing did not come from this planet. I don't know. I know we got a lot of stuff, but nothing like that.
Wow. Okay. So, just to help me with the history. So when we brought some of the Nazi scientists over here and we were trying to reverse engineer some of the ET technology that they knew about, that we knew about, that was to help us with our fleets that we have. Is that right?
Well, yeah, Werner von Braun really wasn't. He really meant to help us. And some of the other Nazi scientists were too. That's a complicated subject. But I just wrote on Facebook about the Vril Society.
Yes.
Maria Morsic.
Yep.
So there was and the Flugerods did exist. If Hitler had had more time, he had another 6 months, he would have won the war, because he had flying discs that way outmaneuvered our fighters. But they bombed the factories before they make any more. But Hitler, another 6 months, and the Allies would have had a very hard time stopping Hitler. I don't know where he got that technology from. Somebody, nobody really knows. There's the Bell thing in Bavaria, so I don't know, but somebody gave him the technology. Somehow they got the technology, but it's a complicated subject. But the Werner von Braun, most of them brought that technology with them. I just noticed we got to go. Just about 5 more minutes, sweetie, and I got to go.
Okay. Yes, I don't want to keep you. We are going to have a part 2. You are so gracious to do that with me. And we are going to talk more about your book, Merging Dimensions, and about Bradshaw Ranch. And that is going to be incredible because you've had so many amazing experiences there. We're going to talk more about the Stargates that you've been through, more about your ET experiences there and the paranormal. And also, and I'm sure Gary Norris is going to be excited about this, some of the experiences that you had with Bigfoot, or She-Bigfoot, right?
Well, Bigfoot that was my first. I got into Bigfoot when I was about 13 years old, so I know a lot about Bigfoot, and they're real. They're all over the world. They're very gentle. They're not aggressive creatures unless they've been shot, which does happen. But and they can materialize and dematerialize. So all sorts of stories from eyewitnesses that they were just a plain stinking animal. And there was a family in Oklahoma that had a family of Bigfoot on their ranch, and they would bring the Bigfoot books. And the Bigfoot, they could speak English.
Oh.
They'd read the books and then critique them. Well, how'd you like the book? And the Bigfoot, there's a mother, father, and 2 kids. And they're not joking. These people weren't joking. They're not making it up. So, sooner or later, we'll have a better... Incidentally, the government knows everything about Bigfoot. Everything. The Bigfoot have a language, and there are people in the government that know how to speak.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. Well, there's a video. It's when... that volcano in Oregon. The title of it is, I think it was Mount St. Helens. It blew up Mount St. Helens. There's a video that's absolutely true. When the mountain blew, it blew in one direction. The blast went in one direction and it killed thousands of bears and deer and elk and whatnot. And it also killed a bunch of big feet. So
interesting. Now, are they in this dimension, Tom?
Well, good question. Probably yes and no. I think they can go into other dimensions. Just a slight change into another dimension and be in another dimension. They can stand right beside you and you wouldn't see them. You couldn't see them.
Okay.
But but this thing that happened at Mount St. Helens, I wish I could remember the title of it. It was Bigfoot Incident at Mount St. Helens or something like that. But anyway, the Air Force went in, and I was thinking, why the Air Force? But they went in and got the Bigfoot bodies, and they had them in a pile in a yard and covered it with a tarp. For I don't know why, but an Air Force got a soldier in uniform. There was a Bigfoot that had his arm in a sling, and they were just walking around casually talking in a language. It's like somebody overheard them talking, and the Air Force guy talked the Bigfoot language. I know this isn't bullshit. It's for real. Because I've heard so many stories about Bigfoot that are true. There's no reason for anybody to make up a story like that I've heard. So. So anyway, what the guy they took the one that has his arm in a sling, the Bigfoot, in a helicopter and landed near where he lived in a cave, and his wife was dead, his son was barely alive, and the guy said we had to shoot it on the spot. It was hurt so bad, burned so bad. And he said, the Bigfoot that had his arm in a sling, you could see how it emotionally struck him.
Oh, wow.
So I know that's true. It's not folklore. It's true. And I know dozens of stories like that.
Wow. And I heard that they have amazing healing abilities. So I'm surprised that I guess the son was beyond healing.
Yeah, it was burned. Everything was burned so bad that it was, couldn't be. That volcanic blast, something like 3,000. Because that's horrific heat. I forget what it's called. That first blast that comes out of a volcano, but it kills. They picked up the elk and the deer and the bears and burned them. They had to put them in one place and burn them to keep an epidemic from starting. It's just the way it is. It's the way it is. We need to understand it. I mean, we need to have an understanding of this stuff.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do, and I'm just scratching the surface with everything I've done. I'm still just scratching the surface, and I know it.
Wow. Amazing. Tom, one last question and I'll let you go. Thank you so much for being with me today. You know, Trump, with Space Force, okay, this just didn't happen. He didn't just come up with Space Force. This has been something that has been, you know, going on for a long time. Can you speak about that?
Well, yeah, just what I've been told. But somebody said, you know, the Space Force, those guns aren't. They're pointed in outer space. They are not pointed at the Earth. That's what somebody told me. That's what's about that. So I don't know. Other than that, I don't know.
Okay. And anything about the secret space program that you know of or can talk on?
I could probably probe it.
Okay.
Psychically, but I never have, so I really don't know anything about it.
Okay. And any other intel that you can tell us right now that you've come across in the last little while, whether it be with COVID-19 or anything else?
Well, if people had any idea of what's going on around us, even people like me would have a hard time, dealing with it. Because for instance, I have a friend. He's a recently retired Air Force colonel. 40 years ago, he was working with praying mantis, human. They were half human, half praying mantis. 40 years ago, on a base somewhere, and all this new stuff about the hybrids, the alien-human hybrids, and the human-alien, the alien-human and human-alien. The aliens used to hybrid humans. Now the U.S. government is hybridizing aliens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. About 21 different races have been hybridized. Just listen to Emery Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Just listen to Emery Smith. I know Emery. He's a total straight up guy. Total. Honest. So 40 years ago, he was working with, half human, half praying mantis. He said they were a little weird, but they were half human, so we got along all right. They were doing research on a military base somewhere.
Wow. They did some crazy things to Emery, apparently. So, you've come out with some disclosure things and some other great experiences. Have you ever feared for your life?
No, because I'm protected by something, either alien or spiritual, that won't let anything harm me. I learned that long ago. I've been in situations where I could have been hurt or killed easily, but something was protecting me. So I don't know, but I'm glad it's there. I really don't know whether it's spiritual or extraterrestrial, but it's like one guy told me, he says, Tom, they all park the ships in the same garage.
That's wonderful. Oh my goodness. Tom Dongo, you are a wonderful soul with a good heart, and I am so glad that our paths have crossed. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And I apologize to everyone for our technical difficulties, but you know what? After that, it has just become a beautiful dialogue with Tom. And Tom, thank you so much for spending this part of your day with me.
Well, thank you very much, Jody. And it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And stay tuned, everybody, for part 2. And that's to be announced. And those of you who have not, go subscribe to Guided on my YouTube channel, Jody's Gems. I would love for you to be a part of our tribe, and we're going to have more wonderful interviews like this. So have a beautiful rest of your day. And Tom, I will be in touch.
Okay, Jody.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.